In 2009, February 19th, 2019, regular meeting of the Riverton City Council to order at 7 o'clock. Our Pledge of Allegiance will be given by Councilmember Larson and invocation by Councilmember Hancock.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, we're grateful for the opportunity to meet together as a city council and with the members of the citizens in the city of Riverton here, and we thank Thee so very much for the opportunity to serve this great city. We ask that it please bless us with the Spirit so that we can be guided to make decisions that will better the citizens and make this city better than it is, and be able to help others to be able to be safe and to be able to accomplish those things that they would like to accomplish here. We thank Thee so very much for the opportunity to serve again and for the service of many of the great citizens of this city, and we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Good evening. Would the city clerk please read the roll call?
Yes, Your Honor. Councilwoman Carla Borders.
Here.
Councilman Tim Hancock.
Here.
Councilwoman Rebecca Schatze.
Here.
Councilman Kyle Larson.
Here.
Mayor Richard Gard.
Here. The chair would entertain a motion to excuse Councilman Mike Bailey from
Motion
tonight's
to
meeting.
excuse Mike Bailey.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. I declare that we have a quorum present. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Communication from the floor, citizens' comments. Anyone in the audience wishing to address the council regarding an item that is already on the agenda will be given the opportunity to speak later on. I would ask those individuals who wish to address the council at this time to approach the podium and identify yourself for the record. How are you?
Sherry Gilbert. And that's C-H-E-R-E Gilbert.
Thank you. Did you have anything you wanted to tell us? Or you?
Oh, you mean right now?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I thought if I wanted to speak about something that was on the agenda tonight, then I would do that later.
You will, and we'll let you do that in the portion that you're interested in. Okay. Is there anybody else that has anything that's not on the agenda that would like to address the council? Seeing none, would the city clerk please read the consent agenda items by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Approval of the minutes, February 5th, 2019, regular council meeting. Approval of the minutes, February 12th, 2019, council work session. Approval of the minutes, February 19th, 2019, Finance Committee meeting. Approval of the Finance Committee recommendations for February 19th, 2019. And approval of the municipal court report for the month of January 2019.
Thank you. Are there any items requiring further discussion?
Your Honor.
Yes.
The recommendations from the Finance Committee were for bills to be paid in the amount of $137,412.22, manual checks in the amount of $56,911.85, payroll liabilities for February 1st, 2019 in the amount of $231,744.30 for a total of $426,068.37.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent agendas as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Ordinance number 19-001, third reading and final reading, shipping containers in residential zoning. Community Development Director's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. The primary mission of the Community Development Department is to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Riverton. As a professional engineer, I'm also bound by the Code of Ethics to hold paramount the safety, health, and welfare of the public. Ordinance 19-001, as it exists today, runs contrary to this mission and Code of Ethics. I cannot recommend approval in its current form. Extensive research has been completed on the subject, with the most beneficial information coming from a position paper included in your packets tonight. While the position paper includes accounting of 2 shipping container explosions, one of which fatally injured a firefighter, the most substantive evidence from their analyses comes from the container characteristics portion of the paper, page 15 of your packet. This portion of the paper indicates shipping container wall yield strength is approximately 1 pound per square inch, with a bursting strength of 1.2 pounds per square inch. These values are also indicative of trials in which shipping containers have been buried underground. The mode of failure is most always failure of the walls to resist very low lateral earth pressure. The paper goes on to discuss resulting pressure increases inside the container from ambient air temperature. With an increase in temperature of 144 degrees Fahrenheit, which is easily achievable during fire, the internal pressure within the shipping container can reach 5.4 pounds per square inch, an increase of 343% over the rupture strength of the walls. The standard venting found on conventional shipping containers cannot release a pressure gradient this large. The paper also discusses venting scenarios, page 16 of your packet. The chart at the top of page 16 calculates the required explosion venting for very small amounts of various fuel sources individually. Their analysis included 2 cups of methanol, a quarter gallon of gasoline, and 2.2 pounds of propane. The required percentages of explosion venting required for each type of fuel are 36.4, 36.3, and 46%, respectively. In other words, 1/3 to 1/2 of the walls of a shipping container would need to be weakened to mitigate explosion risk. In their words, the key conclusion is that even very small unregulated volumes of flammable liquids or combustible gases in shipping containers can possibly create low-energy explosion and rupture of shipping containers. Given that substantial modifications necessary to make shipping containers safer for residential use, I would recommend reverting Ordinance 19-001 back to its original form from first reading. And with that, I'd stand for any questions you may have.
Any discussion? Kyle?
The original, as I remember, we had a very small opening on the bottom door and a very small opening on the top. In the supplement that we have, there shows a vent dock on top and a rather large vent opening on the front door. Would that be adequate?
Your Honor?
Yes.
Yes, in that paper, they had recommendations for venting, as well as included the weakening of the walls to provide for explosion relief.
Yes.
Now, I noticed that on the bottom of this, it says a shipping container may be classified as temporary structure and requires a permit by the city. Such permit should be valid only at the location specified and valid for only 180 days. Does that mean that the setback rule and all that other stuff wouldn't apply for a temporary structure, that I might put it on my front of my yard?
Your Honor,
Yes.
the temporary, Section D, I'll read that out loud. A shipping container may be classified as a temporary structure and require a permit issued by the city. Such permit, when issued, shall be valid only at the location specified thereon and be valid for no more than 180 days. That provision was in place in the first and second readings in order to allow or accommodate construction-type uses. We would be able to review those permit applications if someone wanted to put one of these in a highly densified area, say they were building one house on one vacant lot. We would probably look at that with some trepidation. If they're building 15 homes in an undeveloped subdevelopment, then I think it would probably be an appropriate use to allow a shipping container to be used as a construction site container. That's what the temporary use was.
So was that a yes or a no?
That would be, you'd have to remind me of the question again. I'm sorry.
I see that it is listed as temporary shipping container might be a temporary structure. Temporary to me means that it's not permanent, doesn't have a foundation, it's not locked on the ground, doesn't have a zip code or a shipping address, that it would be temporary. It says such a permit would be issued for no more than 180 days. Does that mean that I could put it anywhere on my property and avoid any type of offset, meaning so many distance from the sidewalk, so many distance from the property line? And the answer was?
No, that is not the intent of the provision D. The intent of provision D would be for construction purposes only.
Which would allow it to be in a residential area.
Correct.
Eric, thanks, Kyle. Eric, I thought we were trying to make that provision work for someone that wanted to bring in a pod to move their household goods over a period of time, or bring in a pod to accomplish that, which in essence would put it in their front driveway, the front of their house, and that you could obtain a permit for that through the city. Is that incorrect?
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, that would also include the temporary use of, generally those shipping suppliers place fairly stringent regulations on what you can place inside those containers temporarily. But yes, we would likely classify those under the temporary use.
Yes.
Your Honor. So for that then, if you're putting the shipping, like you just got done talking to Councilman Larson about, you would deny their request then because it's not, so for instance, if I wanted to move my house off of my cul-de-sac, and move somewhere else, and I request to have this temporary storage put in, but I'm going to be denied because of the close proximity of my neighbors?
Your Honor,
Yes.
no, and I apologize. Those two provisions, so construction uses and then temporary shipping or professional home movers, would be allowed under that permitting process.
But, would that still be 180 days? I mean, I've never known a woman to be able to live out of her house for less than, 180 days just doesn't sound like a realistic number for moving one's furniture. I don't think there's a woman in Riverton that would allow that to occur. So, we seem to be at loggerheads. One, if we're using a pod, which is not a shipping container, it is different than a shipping container, and we're saying 180 days for moving storage. Where are we going?
Kyle? Yes.
I think the point is that this is something that would have to be decided on a case-by-case basis. Somebody moving, construction. I think it's meant to be broad enough for the city to be able to look at it and say, this makes sense to allow them to have it there temporarily, no more than 180 days. So I don't think it's limited to just certain situations. It's something that I think would be looked at on a case-by-case basis in deciding, is this appropriate or not? Is it going to be there for too long? 180 days is also meant to be no more than 180 days. So I would think the way the language is, you could actually have a permit for less than 180 days, depending on the circumstances. Is that all correct?
Your Honor,
Yes.
that is correct, yes.
And I would like to point out to Councilman Larson, there are a couple bachelors in town that might take a little longer to move.
Right.
There's some people that would
So-
offer to live out of the shipping container.
This is true. So I think we're running down two opposing comments of what temporary is for. Now, we have had these pods and shipping containers used on building in construction, but those are usually in commercial zoning. And so we wouldn't even be worried about anything that's sitting in a commercial or industrial zone with this, which I might point out is the video that was widely disseminated by the building department. That was a log manufacturing facility in British Columbia that caught on fire, which would have been in an industrial zone and would have been allowed to have that unit. And so we can't protect every situation, and I think that's something that needs to be pointed out. There's going to be situations where we can't control everything that happens to it. I do think it's important that these containers have the ability to be placed in a spot that people could actually use them to move from one location to another. I don't think you're going to move in 180 days. I think that's a little bit long, and I think that 180 was mostly thought of for maybe construction type usage, that they, a building being built, that they may want to have that kind of length of time. The other thing that I did go down and look, and some containers that are here in town, and I was rather impressed with their exterior and their interior. And I know Mr. Piplick is in the room. He got up last week and mentioned that, maybe we could lock people in these containers. And so I looked into that. This is pretty hard to lock somebody in one of these containers unless you do it on purpose. I was a juvenile many years ago, and I would have locked somebody in a container if I got a chance. And so I think that goes back to a crime, though, if that occurs. And so I don't know that we can protect against that either. These have exterior locks that have to be swung into place. The dogs have to intergage, and the handles have to be put down. And so pretty hard to lock somebody in accidentally. We're not talking about stacking these units. We're talking about using the smallest storage unit, which is a 8 by 20 storage unit. Low profile compared to most sheds in Riverton. And we've had a lot of information pushed our way that they need to be on foundations, that they need to be painted the same as the house. And I think we have a comment from Councilman Bailey that we probably ought to read at this. He is out of town and apologizes for that. I think he is the president of the Petroleum Association. And so he's doing his work there. And so if Tony would read us that statement, I would appreciate it.
Yes, Your Honor. The following came from Councilman Bailey via email and was asked to be read to council. The following are his words. I feel that the metal shipping containers should be treated the same as any other form of storage unit. I feel that we can increase the safety of all of them by adding mandatory ventilation. If we all decide to put the fire codes into effect, it should be on all storage units, both metal and wood structures. As such, as much as we try, we cannot always protect everyone in every situation. I think that this will be a good compromise while letting people have the right to do as they wish with their own property. That's all, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I just had a couple of points. I think I would feel a lot better about this if we were able to vent those structures more than they are. Maybe Eric has some input on the size recommendation. Maybe a grate could be placed over it so it's not exposed for someone to crawl in and out of, but so it's vented, because those gases can build up pretty quick, as they can in any other structure. The other thing I wondered about is placing warning labels on them, just to let people know, if you're going to store gas in here long term, it could be a bad result, something like that. That's really about all I had for comment.
Thank you.
Your Honor,
Yes.
I'm curious with Councilman Border's statement for Community Development Director. What would you have a recommendation for size? Is it smaller than this that you would recommend, or would you not recommend it in any situation?
Your Honor,
Yes.
I would not recommend in any circumstance. And part of the reasoning is this is somewhat an Occam's razor issue. We could make a very, very complex, very, very intricate set of rules to allow shipping containers, but I'm not sure that serves the public in the best interest. And so in my mind, the easiest, most simple solution would just not to allow them in residential zoning. Commercial and industrial, commercial highway, that's a very appropriate use for a shipping container. However, not in a residential zone.
Now, once again, I went through the city and took a look at some shipping containers that are already in the city. We have a 8 by 20 shipping container at the girls softball facility. We have 2 8 by 20 shipping containers on the fire academy site. We have one that's located on Riverview Adams that turns into Riverview across from the Brown Apartments. We have 2 40-footers that sit on a playground in Riverton. And so even with Councilman Bailey's statements, if we treat things fairly, if we treat wood sheds the same way as we treat metal sheds, I think we're going to have skid structures in here wondering why we have to put a turbine on the top of their structure. And yet, fair's fair, and I couldn't find any data. I did receive a video link, and I didn't share it around to anybody but 2 council members, of a wooden shed blowing up and fatally injuring an individual, and also of a wood shed blowing up and catching on fire. So I think we can have the same discussion with a wood shed. We can also have the same discussion with the fact that they're not as pretty as we'd like them to be. We can have the same discussion of the footprint that they leave, or we can have the same discussion with, are they painted the right color? Are they painted? In one of the ordinance proposals, we were given the fact that they need to be painted the same as the house. Now, I don't know of a lot of sheds that are painted the same color as the house in Riverton. And my whole concept of what we're doing here is trying to make a level playing field and encouraging commerce to come to Riverton. And that's exactly what I want to do. I want it to be an even and fair playing surface. I think that's what Councilman Bailey's trying to say. And so really we should require, if we're requiring it of the wood shed industry, we ought to require it of the metal shed industry. Councilman Larson.
I agree with you, Your Honor. The unfortunate thing about your logic is playing fields are looked on from a different point of view in a residential area. Something about a residential area is that you put your life savings into a house. It's the largest investment that you're ever going to make. And consequently, that life savings, you hope is going to grow. And by having a fair and level playing field means that somebody next to you can input a structure which is non-conforming, but it's a plain level field. So your investment now goes down because it's a plain level field. Unfortunately, we have government who has invested heavily in individuals owning their own home. They look at square as non-conforming, meaning they won't lend on it. If they won't lend on it, that's the same reason why we don't have straw-built homes. That's a level playing field. We don't have geodetic homes. That's a level playing field. We have conforming homes which have pitched roofs made of wood that have a permanent foundation, that have a certain setback, that have conforming to the structures surrounding the area. Now, I was told that really doesn't matter by one of the local representatives of these buildings. Well, it does matter because life savings, when you buy or sell real estate, your property is all you have. And when you pass a bill, an ordinance, that allows somebody to devalue your property for a level playing field, it's not in the best interest of the city. I bet you if I bought a piece of property in Riverton up in on the golf course, or Big Wyoming, or and I tried to put in a square box storage, it would be unbelievably pressured not to do that.
Councilman.
All I'm trying to do is stop us from making a big mistake.
Councilman Larson, I've lived on the golf course, and you can't even have, there are covenants on the golf course that you can't put windows in your garage door, and you can't leave your garage door up for a certain period of time. That's what covenants are for. And covenants are very effective, and the beauty of covenants are the individuals that live in those neighborhoods, and you can form a covenant group anytime you choose to, enable the group to maintain some control over the vision of their association and their group. And so some of the most expensive structures, and we could go right up to Jackson, are square, boxy built houses without tipped roofs. And I'd really like to build one someday. So if any of you guys would fall in line, that would be an interesting opportunity. But I understand exactly what you're saying, that there are people in the audience that feel like it would affect their value. As I read the script agenda, and I told the young lady that she could speak later, I don't see a spot for public comment on this. Can we amend that and get public comment in or not?
Your Honor, generally speaking, the mayor has the ability to allow individuals to speak. We've done that in different times when people have spoke throughout. I believe that's appropriate. So you could just ask if there's additional comments from the floor, assuming everybody on council has.
Is anyone on the council opposed?
not to someone speaking.
No.
So why don't we do this? Usually we have, and on the next few ordinances that we have a public reading. And there isn't one on this third reading. So anybody that would like to address the council about shipping containers, we would entertain your words at this time. If you would come up to the podium and state your name and speak into the mic so the home audience can pick you up, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. I appreciate the time to address you all and the citizens of Riverton. I think, Mayor, when you were talking about developments have covenants to protect the homeowners that live in those developments, you're our covenant. We depend upon you to provide us with those covenants. And this, what Mr. Larson is saying is so very true. We may say it's unfair, it's not right, we shouldn't judge, but I'm not going to talk about property values and what I'm speaking of, only that to say it will devalue your property. If you have one of these sitting next door and it's visible, it will have an effect on the value of the property. And so I depend on you guys for our covenants to protect us, not only financially, but more importantly from a safety standpoint. And when I read this in the paper on Sunday, unfortunately, I'm last minute, last second having to address this issue. I didn't even know this was going on. I thought, boy, I've got to check my little website for the Riverton City so I know what's going on, because I do feel passionately about this. And I did do some research on this, because at first it was all aesthetics. It was like, oh my gosh, I found this article on Bend, Oregon, and they showed a couple in a housing development, and they were orange shipping containers, and they were just, it was bad. And so Bend is chasing the same problem because they didn't have anything to protect homeowners. And so people were moving them in. This has become a new thing. People are building homes and moving into shipping containers, used shipping containers. But when I listened to you guys talk tonight, I realized we haven't really refined this yet. City council members still have questions about, now, can we do this? Can we do that? So it seems to me like this shouldn't be ready for the third and final reading, that this ordinance will be adopted right now. I think further study at least needs to be addressed. And from a safety standpoint, I think what I looked about the word shipping container. A shipping container, it's on a semi, it's on a boat, a big ship, or it's on a train. And it's to ship goods from place to place. And if you have a used shipping container, many times these are sprayed with certain chemicals to protect whatever you're moving. It could be perishable items. And they've had cases where they open those up on the docks and the fumes are so strong, it affects even the workers. So we're not even talking about what if people buy a used one that meets the size requirement. What about the structural integrity, or whether or not there are chemicals within it? So I guess that was the first thing I wanted to talk about, is just the fact that the shipping container is airtight and waterproof, and that makes it kind of nice. And they're not that expensive. That makes it kind of nice. But the thing that makes it airtight and waterproof also makes it incredibly dangerous as far as fumes are concerned. And we haven't even decided yet what is the appropriate, safe ventilation system. Because if you say, well, this is only 10 feet long and 8 feet wide, that smaller shipping container has a 4-time propensity to build up the explosive levels within it than one that was 20 feet long. The bigger it is, the more space you've got for these fumes. The smaller it gets, the more compact these fumes can be. And we know in Riverton, we love all of our toys, and a lot of them use gas. A lot of them we use in our yards. And the shipping container is a perfect area. It's got big, huge doors that you can take in the back so you can store all of that stuff. But it takes, I think it was less than a half a gallon of gas in one of these on a hot summer day. Does not take that long for the fumes to build up. And so, to me, we have to do some more studying on what is going to make it safe. How do we regulate these? I don't know, but I think we need to regulate them. I don't think we can just say right now, tonight, we're going to allow you to have a shipping container if it meets a certain size. and it's going to have to be set back a certain amount. I think you're going to have to make them safe so the public doesn't have to worry about whether or not there could potentially be an explosion. And I know a child can't, lift one of those doors open and get in there and open it up. But even on a hot summer day, I know down at the tire store, they say they get smelly inside when it's very, very hot. And I think that's great for commercial industrial use. I think there's a place for these to be used. I do not think these are appropriate in any way, shape, or form for storage in residential. I think we store enough stuff. And I don't think it takes 6 months to move a house. I think normally, I used one when I lived in Santa Barbara. They came in, they loaded it up, they took it away. They took it to the next place, they unloaded it. So I think I would like you to all really reconsider this issue. I'd like you to maybe come up with a way that we could feel better about it, because I can see that you guys still have questions about it. And that's all I have to say. And I thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments.
You bet.
Anyone else that would like to address the audience?
I'm Joyce Stoltz.
Yes.
And I came to the meeting too to address this problem. And just looked at the pictures that you could see and the danger that they expose. And like she said, the small amount of gasoline in your lawnmower or any of your equipment, and that's of course where you'd want to put it if you didn't have great ventilation, which none of them have yet, and I know you've addressed that. They're a great danger. And then the other thing is that the look, and that's important to a city, to look, their backyards, their front yards, to look nice and comparable. And at a point, it seems to me like in order to make them palatable in this way, you'd have to have so many rules, because they can paint them, and then somebody else buys the house and they want a psychedelic, and which is their business, but yet think about what they can do to that. And I don't know whether she addressed Bend, Oregon, did she?
Yes, ma'am.
She did do that. Okay, but there it is. They voted it in, and then this is what happened. And they moved them around so that they were a nuisance to the neighbors, and the colors and the changing of the guard and all the interesting stuff that could happen. And then they can, it's theirs, so what do you say? So if you don't get into it in the first place, you don't have to deal with all this stuff. And I thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Bruce Kaminga, and just wanted to address this issue because of experience that I had back when I lived in Michigan, working with the volunteer fire department. We had a lot more trouble with wooden temporary storage sheds, or skid structures they call them out here, than I ever did with the shipping containers. The biggest thing, I guess, I see is that they're temporary. So if your neighbor moves in with one and a few years later he moves out, he can take it with him. It's not like a garage where you have it nailed down to the cement. But the nice idea that I have seen out here is the temporary skid structures of any kind, whether wood or steel, come in pretty handy in a residential area. So,
Thanks, Bruce. Appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Cruz. Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, City Council. I think something that we're missing, that is getting glossed over from Mr. Carr's presentation, is the 1/3 to 1/2 structural removal of the walls. And he can correct me if I'm misspeaking on that. I had a nice talk with him this afternoon. 1/2 gallon of gasoline in a woodshed, that's a problem. 1/2 gallon of gasoline in a tight steel box is now a bomb. I think in the presentation you guys had, or he showed me, there was metal chunks flying 900 feet or thereabouts away from the the structure when it went up, and in order to reduce and to mitigate that possibility, the study is saying you need to remove 33 up to 50% of the structural capacity of these buildings. So by the time you've taken a third or a half out of the walls, it's very unusable, or that's a lot of work. That's a lot of time and effort and money to mitigate that explosive problem. And I'm not sure anybody has spoken about that. I understand that a wood shed burning is very bad, and I'm not a firefighter, and I've never had any experience with that. But it's a lot different than a metal building exploding because of that pressure and Mr. Carr can speak to that more, I'm sure, if you guys have questions about that number, though. Removing 1/3 of the structure of anything, that's a lot of work. These things are built to last, they're built to be stacked, they're built to be reused over and over and over again, and for very specific use. And that use just, unfortunately, is not in your yard near neighbors. Industrial, highway, the other examples that Mr. Carr gave, I think we can all agree on. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thanks, Jeremy. Anyone else? Mayor Wartness, welcome back.
Thank you, Mayor Guard, council, staff. Seems like I just can't get away. I'm a citizen that lives in residential area, and my garage is painted the same color as my house, and so is my shed. I think I'm probably the exception rather than the rule, which is a concern to my wife, but it's the way we live when we don't have the covenants that you were talking about. I agree with the lady that spoke and suggested that the council and the city, you're our covenants for all the citizens that live here, and we're depending upon you. And I remember that that's a very heavy burden sometimes to try to figure out how to be fair to all parties and yet still move forward in a positive way. So to be quite honest, I'm just amazed that we're even having this discussion regarding industrial shipping containers. I remember we had a similar discussion regarding chickens, and that one kind of took me back for a while. But, and I'm sure we'll get across this one as well. But in a residential area, it just seems to me like there's so many questions that we have from a health and safety standpoint for children that are in that area. In an industrial area, you don't have, that density of children, and so probably not quite to worry about. But the aesthetics of a shipping container, we used to call them connexes in the Army, and they are what they are. They're structurally sound, they're designed for a particular purpose, on and on and on. But there's reasons that they're not allowed in areas that have covenants, in my opinion, and it's probably mainly for aesthetic purposes. And we spend a lot of money in our home for aesthetic purposes. I paid $1,500 for a rock that's sitting out in my front yard. And, my neighbors looked at that and say, what the hell? But, that's what we want. We want to have something that's special to us. And maybe a shipping container will be special to someone. If I thought that it would help clean up, our alleys and whatnot, but I think you could put them up and down the alley, and it probably wouldn't help clean up the properties that we have. So at any rate, I just think that the city is going the wrong direction with this discussion at all. And I just am delighted at the leadership that Councilman Larson is showing in opposition to this. And I just encourage you to listen to the wisdom of Mr. Carr. Let's back off of it. So,
Thank you, Mayor. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Henry DeClerc. I'm the fire chief here in Riverton. To speak to this gentleman's point, yes, wood structures burn and they can explode and bad things can happen. When I first heard about this steel Connex can shipping container deal, I thought, hey, that's all right. I mean, they're great. They're watertight. They're pretty much weatherproof. Seems like a good deal. Until they blow up. And that's a bad deal. Yes, the case that you referenced was in an industrial area, but that's an example of what can happen. I've got a shed in my backyard. If one of those blew up, I've had fires in my neighborhood, in my backyard, very close to me, and you could say that there was explosions. Luckily, the wood pieces, the fragments, didn't travel that far because that pressure was not allowed to build up the way that these will allow them to. Now, if we can vent them, would I be okay with it? From a fire service standpoint? Sure. The problem is you got to vent them a lot, and then it doesn't make sense. The other problem is you look at all these they are vented. You go down to the corner on Federal and Monroe there, and you look at them, and they all have vents, but they're very small, and they're all up high. All of these hydrocarbons that we're talking about, gasoline, oil, propane, the vapor density of those is very heavy. So that means it's heavier than air. It's going to collect on the bottom first. And you would have to vent the lower half of that structure to make it safe. So you didn't have those problems. So I'm going to recommend that we do not allow them in residential areas based on just that, just the safety for your neighbor. For, if you have one in your backyard and you have a fire impinge upon it, and it could happen. I mean, it can happen to any of us. That it doesn't, maybe it stays contained to your property or something very close to it rather than taking out somebody else's home, someone else. So that's what I've got on that topic.
Thanks, Chief.
Absolutely.
Any further questions from the audience? Can I have a motion then to close public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Since we're winging this, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Thank you. I feel the same disjointed feeling here, and the reason I do is because we've been at odds from the start of this with our own building department, and our building department has got out in front of us and tried to expose great hazard to what we're doing, and I think it would be a wise idea to table this. Being the mayor, I don't have that opportunity to make a motion.
Your Honor,
Yes.
I would make a motion to table this. I don't know how to do this appropriately, so please guide me.
Your Honor, if I may.
Please.
I believe the question is to table in more so what's the next step? So table it for a work session discussion at the next available work session next month, or. So I think you can table it for that given amount of time, of course, because it's denoted. But it's important to say what is next. And additionally, what also staff needs to provide in terms of information, in terms of particular recommendations. That helps us to provide you the information that you need for your decisions.
Your Honor, I would table this ordinance for the next work session. And the guidance that I have for the city is, I don't know. Somebody could help me out with this, because I just feel like we all just need more information in regards to the whole ordinance, I guess. Because we are divided. I understand that Councilman Larson has a very strong opinion against allowing them, but I also feel that there's other members of council that have a strong opinion of keeping them. So I don't know what to say, because I also feel that the staff is against it as well. So I don't know how we could prepare anything else.
So if I understand I'm sorry, Your Honor, if I may.
Go ahead.
If I understand your motion is to table it for discussion at the next work session. And if anybody has questions, maybe they can provide them to staff in advance, or any specific questions to staff in advance.
Tony or Kristen, what, if we table, do we come back at the third reading? Or do we come back from start? Robert's Rules of Order.
Your Honor,
Yes.
if we table the ordinance on third reading, we would come back on third reading. If we postpone it to a discussion at a work session, we can do that and then hear it at the next regular meeting after that.
Okay. And so if I understand it correctly, if we don't bring it back up, it dies a natural death, right? If we don't put it back on the agenda in a timely form, then it just dies, correct?
It would still go back on the agenda, and the council would have the opportunity at that time to vote it down if they didn't want to pass it.
Or vote it up.
Yes.
Okay.
Or vote it down.
And so I think one of our problems is aesthetics. We can agree on a lot of things.
I apologize, Your Honor. I believe there's a motion.
Well,
And
thank you for reminding me. We do have a motion to table. Any further discussion from the council members on table?
We don't have a second yet.
I would second that, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. We do have a second. We have a first and a second. Any discussion?
Yes, Your Honor.
Councilman Hancock.
Your Honor, I oppose tabling it. We have citizens here who want action. They don't want this. We have people that are saying this is not the way to go with Riverton. I think it's unfair to expect them to come back later when we discuss it on a third reading to again express their opinions. And the reality is we have the information we need now. We've been talking about the dangers. We've been talking about, even somebody who can get on and Google it can find out that this is not a good idea. It makes no sense to table it and just push it off. We've had 3 readings to deal with it. We've already discussed it. I think the time to act is now, and tabling it is unfair to everybody who's already shown up here at this meeting. It makes no sense to put it off. So I just want to say I oppose tabling it. I think we should put it to a vote now.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor of tabling, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Hey,
I'm on the fence. I'm kind of in agreement with Councilman Hancock that I think these people deserve an answer.
We need to, you don't have to vote, but if you choose not to, that's your choice.
I'm going to vote nay.
Okay. So we have the table amendment dies on a 1 to, and can the mayor vote on that? So I would vote in the affirmative. So it's 2 to 3. Yes, Kyle.
The mayor only votes to break a tie.
I just asked, and Kristen informed me that I could. So,
she does it.
Kristen, is that correct or wrong?
You have a vote, Your Honor.
Thank you. It still fails, so no matter where my vote hits, it's 2 to 3. So the table amendment fails. So let's go right ahead and would the city please read ordinance number 19-001 by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Proposed ordinance number 19-001 on third and final reading. An ordinance amending Title 17 zoning to revise Chapter 17.20 accessory uses, Section 17.20.030 accessory building and use of the Riverton Municipal Code, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion.
Your Honor, what exact motion are you asking for?
What we just read. Are we ready to put a motion forward? Any of you?
Your Honor, I move for the adoption of the ordinance.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
Yes, Your Honor.
Councilman Hancock.
Your Honor, I'd move we amend the ordinance that we have already been discussing back to how it was originally, and I don't have that right in front of me, but as we had it as the first reading, which would disallow shipping containers in residential areas, regardless of size.
We have a motion.
Second?
We have a second. Now, anybody got that information with us?
Your Honor,
Do you have the original?
It's in the packet. Page,
Is it just the,
it would be the red text only.
Number 8, thank you.
It's C with shipping containers are prohibited in all residential and commercial areas, CO, zoned, something, I can't read the rest of it, but it's in, it's C. So we would revert that back, am I right, Tim?
be C, and then I think we started with D. Did that start as A then? So it
Correct.
would be just the red language.
Just the red language is what was presented on first reading, Your Honor.
And my motion was specifically to revert back to that.
Kristen,
Yes, Your
are
Honor.
you able to get back to page 9 in this and read that?
Yes, Your Honor.
And just the red italics is what they'd like, please.
Okay. The ordinance reads, shipping containers are prohibited in all residential and commercial office, CO, zone districts, and with the exception of a shipping container may be classified as a temporary structure and require a permit issued by the city. Such permit, when issued, shall be valid only at the location specified thereon and be valid for no more than 180 days.
So we now have the ordinance read. Do we have a motion?
I think the motion was to amend back to that. We had the second, and I think we're needing to vote on that amendment.
Let's move forward. All those in favor? say
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Mayor votes aye. We have 2-2. And I should wait till, Carla, you put your vote in, because I would be
I
the
did
tiebreaker.
vote. I said aye.
You said aye? So we have a 3-2. So, Tony, jump in. That's what you get paid for. Where we go from here?
Right now, the motion on the table, as it exists, if I'm understanding right, we have three votes for the amendment of the ordinance back to its original form. As such, you now have before you the ordinance in its original form prohibiting these items within a residential zone.
No, we have 2 for that and 3 against.
No, Your Honor.
3, 4, the way that we have ended up here is we have the ordinance as it was originally.
Correct.
Which is what Ms. Watson had read.
Correct.
With that having passed the amendment, that means what we have on the table right now would be that with the amendment, so we would be able to vote on that ordinance.
Your Honor, that is my understanding. My understanding is that there was a motion on the table, that there was a motion to amend the ordinance back to its original, and that amendment was affirmative 3-2.
Is it not 2-3? Did you vote in the affirmative?
Yes.
I voted to revert back to the original.
So
That's
it's
3-2.
So it's 3-2. So yes, you're correct. I'm incorrect.
So, Your Honor, as it currently reads, you do have there was a motion, an amendment, Now, what is before council for its vote right now is to move back to pass the ordinance in its original form. That is where you're at, and your next vote would be.
Okay. So here we go again. The chair has, I don't need to ask for the motion, I just need to ask for the vote.
No, Your Honor, it would only be any further discussion and then a vote.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
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 Your Honor, I'm
You need to
sorry.
read it by title only again, or roll call vote.
Roll call vote
Those are roll
on
call
third and
vote.
Yeah, we're at,
Your Honor, I
we'll have to go to roll call because we're third vote. So would city clerk please conduct a roll call vote?
Yes, Your Honor. And just as clarification, the motion on the table was to adopt the ordinance and seconded, and then the amendment was to revert back to the verbiage from the first reading. And so the roll call vote will be to adopt the ordinance as amended. So Councilwoman Carla Borders,
Aye.
Councilman Tim Hancock,
Aye.
Councilwoman Rebecca Schatze,
Nay.
Councilman Kyle Larson,
Aye.
Mayor Richard Gard.
Nay. Motion passes. And we're back to item 10. For those in the audience, there will be no further discussion on shipping containers. It failed. So thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
We're on item 10 in your agenda, if you have an agenda with you, and it's for an alternate public defender to be appointed, which would be James Whiting, City Administrator's report.
Thank you, Your Honor. Due to a unique circumstance in the city court, we find ourselves in need of an alternate public defender. As such, staff has went out and sought those services. Mayor, you and I had discussed it previously, and as a legal item, it would be the mayor's appointment. This service, I don't know anybody who knows when it's been used. It's very rare. We do have a public defender, which is Jane Juvie, and that has been more than sufficient to date. However, due to this situation, we wanted to remedy this small item. As such, we recommend that council approve the mayor's appointment of James Whiting as the alternate public defender with a hourly rate of $100 when we do use that service. And we'd stand for any questions.
Thank you, Tony. To clarify for the audience, when we had an arrest that had a mother and daughter team in shoplifting, and so we had to have separate public defenders, which we don't have very often. So this isn't going to happen real often, but we needed to do it. So the chair would entertain a motion to appoint James Whiting as an alternate public defender.
I move sorry, Your Honor. I move that we approve the appointment of James Whiting as an alternate public defender for the city of Riverton.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Motion passes. We move on to 11, public hearing and consideration of 2019-2020 liquor license renewal applications. City clerk, report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mayor and Council, before you tonight for your consideration are the renewal applications that have been submitted for the licensing term of April 1st, 2019 to March 31st, 2020. Annually, each liquor license holder is required to submit a renewal application to the licensing authority, which is the City of Riverton. This year, we received 32 renewal applications. Of those applications, 22 of the applications are for retail liquor licenses, 2 are club liquor licenses, 7 are restaurant liquor licenses, and 1 is a bar and grill liquor license. The renewal fees generated as revenue to the city is $39,500, and this is in addition to any sales tax revenue that is generated through the operations of these licenses. Staff began the liquor license renewal process in November of 2018. The process takes approximately 3 months from the generation of the renewal applications to the final issuances of the licenses. Deputy City Clerk Megan Sims oversaw the renewal process again this year and did a wonderful job working with the Liquor Division and the liquor license applicants. City staff in the Wyoming Liquor Division have certified the applications as complete. All of the license holders are in good standing. The proper fees have been paid and proper notice to the public has been advertised. Based on this information, staff recommends approval of the 32 liquor license renewal applications as presented.
It's my bedtime. Yes.
I've got a question. I noticed that all of the applicants have an address, except one's a vacant lot. I noticed that First Interstate Bank has one to be determined. Larson's, not related to me. Living Trust has one to be determined, but then the Maverick Inc. is a vacant lot, and I'm wondering about that. Is that a typo?
Your Honor.
Yes.
No, it's not a typo. Those are just the names underneath of the names in all capital. Those are the actual licensing applicants, and then the names underneath are the doing business as. And while the Maverick store lot is a vacant lot, it is owned by Maverick, and they can keep it inactive there for up to a year.
Okay.
And that's the status right now, correct, is that it's parked?
Correct, non-operational.
Any further discussion? Nope, we're not going there. The chair would entertain a motion to open a public hearing.
So moved.
I'll second. Sorry.
Carla, did you second?
Yes, sir.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passed. I now declare a public hearing open. The hearing will be conducted in accordance with state law and other applicable laws. The hearing will be conducted in accordance with state statute and other appropriate laws. I would ask those individuals wishing to address the council to approach the podium and identify yourself for the record. Seeing none, I would close the public hearing.
Your Honor, I move we close the public hearing.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. The motion passed. I declare that the public hearing is closed. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the liquor license renewal applications for April 1, 2019 through March 31st, 2020.
So moved, Your Honor.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you sitting through that. Public hearing in consideration of the ordinance number 19-002 on first reading, other intoxicants. The city administrator's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Previously, the Solutions Committee, who was in attendance this evening almost completely, the majority of them are in attendance this evening, undertook some discussion about different items that may benefit the community with regards to substance abuse. One of the items that came up was the use of, as defined here, other intoxicants. For the purposes of becoming intoxicated specifically, those are mouthwash, hand sanitizer, and the like. Those items are not listed within state statute. The items that you have presented for you today, the verbiage that you have presented for you is exactly the same as state statute, with the exception of the addition of B5, which denotes that alcohol-based products in any form, including but not limited to mouthwash, hand sanitizer, extracts, and other similar substances, is added to the language. The Solutions Committee reviewed this after it was prepared and recommended it to council. The intent of the ordinance is to start closing some of those loopholes that aid in the public intoxication problem that we have been combating. As council knows, this is one of the items that council identified as a goal, was to seek these solutions. It is recommended by staff, and we would stand for any questions that you have. I would also, again, point out Solutions Committee is here for if you have any questions of them and the discussion that they had during their meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. This committee is under the direction of the police chief. Chief, do you have anything to add?
Your Honor, the only thing that I would add is it is my recommendation that we do pass this, as hand sanitizer, mouthwash, and things of that nature are a serious problem for the public intox problem that we see, and it would aid us greatly as far as the police department in doing our jobs.
Thank you. Tony suggested that anyone that's on that Solutions Committee might have an opinion and would like to speak. Is anyone willing to do so? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tristine Grover, and I'm the chair for the Solutions Committee.
My name is Michelle Whitmere, and I'm the vice chair.
And we are very grateful that we have you guys here tonight, and we're able to bring you back this ordinance. And all of us, it did not take the Solutions Committee but 10, 15 minutes to go through the verbiage and say we're ready for this to go forward and be able to change the small little things that we were able to change. On a daily basis, how I see this problem in our community. I'm also the director of the Fremont County Good Samaritan Center, which is our local homeless shelter. And just simple things like people that are moving and they have their heart to go donate stuff that is in their house, so their cooking supplies. I have to go through all of those to make sure we do not have anything that's alcohol-based. Ladies in churches that will come in and do hygiene kits. I have to take anything out that has mouthwash or toothpaste even that has anything that has alcohol-based products in them. Hand sanitizer I can't leave out, which it's cold and flu season and that's kind of fun. But anything like that, we have to go through and actually watch that to keep our community safe from being able to take these products that are meant to be in cooking or in your hygiene and be able to take that from them so that they're not able to use them for purposes that they're not made for. So we're very excited, and the Solutions Committee is very supportive of bringing this ordinance and hoping that it can keep going forward.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I also run Eagles Hope, which is the transitional housing, and we really focus on those individuals that are in recovery. And it's the little things that Tristine just said that slip by you, the hairspray, the mouthwash, doing room checks. I'm usually looking for the alcohol bottles, and going through there, I see a giant industrial size or economy size of mouthwash, and I know what's happening. So it's those things that slip by us that we think are so innocent. Something as innocent as hairspray. It took me a little bit, but I figured out what was happening. So thank you for taking the time to really listen to our concerns.
Appreciate that. Thank you, ladies. We also have Mayor Wartness attends that committee, and we appreciate his help. We have other individuals. Lance Godey is involved with that. I do appreciate this. This is not an easy committee to be on, and takes a lot of effort and a lot of discussion. And I would like all those members to know how much I appreciate their efforts to amend these. We also have city council that sit on that committee. Would either of you like to address us?
I think we probably could once we get to a vote on it, Your Honor, at least from my end.
Would the city clerk please read the ordinance 19002 by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Proposed ordinance number 19-002 on first reading. An ordinance amending Title IX, Peace, Morals, and Welfare to revise Chapter 9.08, Offenses Against Public Peace and Decency, to establish Section 9.08.230, Unlawful Use of Toxic Substances, penalty, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes. I declare the public hearing open. The hearing will be conducted in accordance with state statute and other applicable laws. I would ask those individuals wishing to address the council to approach the podium and identify yourself for the record. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak?
I was busy on the phone. This is regarding item 12 or 13 on the docket.
No, we're on item 12.
12. Okay, sorry about that.
No worries.
You're just fine, Chief. Everybody's. Anybody else that would like to address? If there's no other speakers, the chair would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes. The chair would entertain a motion to adopt ordinance number 19-002 on first reading.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Councilman Larson.
How is the police going to look for hand sanitizer? How do we do that?
Your Honor, we deal with these perpetrators every day. We know what they drink. We know where they receive it. It's very easy for us to be able to enforce this law once it's enacted. And like I said, I can sit here for the next hour and tell you story after story after story, but I'll save that for a later date. Just know that this will help us combat our public intox problem.
I was looking at the hand sanitizer, 65% ethyl alcohol. Shouldn't it have a liquor license on it?
Your Honor, I do not disagree with that.
Your Honor.
Yes.
Chief, I was visiting with some folks about this, and I just want to say from the time I first heard about this, I'm in support of it. I think it makes sense. But I guess the one thing I'm curious about is, in terms of enforcing this, who are we going to be dealing with? And by that I mean I was speaking with someone and they were saying, well, why do I care, whether somebody wants to get intoxicated on mouthwash? Hand sanitizers they could see, because a lot of those actually have dangerous chemicals in them that if consumed could kill you. It depends on the brand, it depends on what you're getting. But mouthwash, extracts, that sort of thing, are we maybe going a little too far here with saying they can't possess it? Could we just say can't possess it in a public place? Or what do you think about that? Where do you see us enforcing this?
Your Honor?
Yes.
My stance from the Riverton Police Department is that we need to become more aggressive in some of our actions, and so I am fully in support of this. And here's why. I have lived here since 2000, and I feel like the general public and the families have a right to go and enjoy the splash pad, go enjoy the skate park, go enjoy City Park and things of that nature, go and enjoy the bike path. And if this helps combat that and we can use this as a tool, then I'm all for it. So do I feel like it's going too far? Absolutely not.
And I guess the reason I was asking that, we discussed in Solutions Committee, if we had, and this was an example that Chief had, and it made a lot of sense. You've got people passing around a bottle of alcohol, not mouthwash, of alcohol. It's in a sealed container. We're just assuming they're passing it around. Only one person has it, but there's a group, and we could sit there and think, okay, they're passing it around. You were saying, as long as it's in a sealed, as long as it's in a container, we wouldn't be able to prosecute for anything except for open container. If that's closed such that it would fit within the ordinance, there's nothing to prosecute there. It seems like that what we're trying to do with this is not just say you can't be drinking mouthwash to get drunk, but we're trying to say we don't want someone in the park or something and have guys passing around mouthwash and they're drinking it and the police walk up to them and there's absolutely nothing that you could do except for arrest somebody for public intoxication if they were too drunk to see to their own safety.
That's correct.
So I guess the question that I have is, if that's really what we're after, do we need the broader language in this?
Your Honor.
Yes.
My professional opinion is absolutely. It is just one more tool in the tool bag. We have amazing police officers that have full discretion to use this as they see fit. And I have full confidence in our officers that they will use this the right way. So yes.
Thanks, Chief. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Your Honor.
Please.
I just have a comment. I'm new to this committee, but it's very impressive, the work that they're doing, and I just want to commend them for that.
I appreciate that. It is a good committee. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Public hearing and consideration of ordinance 19003, first reading, fireworks on certain days. Would the city administrator read his report, please?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ordinance 19003 is in response to the request of council from the last regularly scheduled meeting for staff to put together something that would allow fireworks at particular times, specifically on 4th of July and New Year's, for over a certain number of hours. We did receive a request for that, and as such have prepared the ordinance that you have in front of you now. The current Riverton Municipal Code, Section 8.04010, currently prohibits the use or sale of fireworks within the city limits of Riverton. What is proposed for you today, that it is staff's understanding we were supposed to propose, is an ordinance change which allows fireworks from 5 p.m. on December 31st to 12:30 a.m. on January 1st, unless otherwise restricted by the City Council by resolution. It also allows for the use of fireworks from 6 p.m. to 11:45 p.m. on July 4th, unless otherwise restricted by City Council via resolution. It denotes that the only fireworks that may be used are, I believe we used to call them Class C, and I have learned since that they are now 1.4 G. But for the sake of our conversation, we will call them Class C fireworks, which are the general items that you would buy at a fireworks stand. They're not commercial grade or professional fireworks. The large shows that would not apply to this ordinance. The sections pertaining to additional restriction via resolution are included to allow council the ability to restrict that use in a particular year for any reason that council sees fit, whether that be fire ban or abuse or any item that may come up. It gives council that discretion and was put in intentionally. I will admit on the onset to a slight mistake when what we have provided you. The item that you have, I've provided a new draft, which was the most recent draft. When I sent out the verbiage, it was the former draft. The new draft that is being proposed, and I believe it would be more appropriate if you like the language to amend, is to add a section 3II, which would denote that the discharge of fireworks during the allowed times is prohibited in the following areas except as authorized herein. A, being city parks and any city-owned property located in the city of Riverton without the consent of city council, and additionally, the school district property without the written consent of the school board. The intention of this was to say that you can't go to City Park or onto the city parking lot and start lighting out fireworks without being granted that particular permission. Most of the time, a individual who wants to light fireworks is, of course, going to do it on their property or right out in front of it, and we understand that. It is not meant to denote the road in front of the house necessarily, because we know they get there sometimes. We did speak to the school district on this, and that is why the school district is considered in this as well. However, that last section would need to be an amendment at this point. Currently, staff recommends approval of the ordinance, and we would be happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Would the city clerk please read ordinance number 19-003 by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Proposed ordinance number 19-003 on first reading. An ordinance amending Title 8, Health and Safety, to revise Chapter 8.04, Explosives and Fireworks, Section 8.04.010, Possession, Use, and Sale Prohibited, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved, Your Honor.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes. I now declare the public hearing open. The hearing will be conducted in accordance with the state statute and other applicable laws, and I would ask those individuals wishing to address the council to approach the podium and identify yourself for the record. Chief.
Hi, it's me again. I apologize for the earlier mistake. I was just previously engaged.
No problem.
Detention. Like I said, my name's Henry DeClerc. I'm the fire chief here in Riverton, and what is the Riverton Fire Protection District, which encompasses not only the city of Riverton, but roughly 10 miles either direction out of the city as well. We cover a large area, 175 square miles, give or take a little bit. It's roughly 20 miles corner to corner as the crow flies for the district. We recommend not supporting this, not allowing the use of fireworks in the city of Riverton. While they are fun, and I enjoyed them as much as anyone else before I was kept away from my family all night, running from one end of the district to the other, putting out fires caused by fireworks. We put out fires caused by fireworks from May until August. I included a letter just in case I wasn't going to be here. I think you guys have that. There's some stats in there. They're not all inclusive. That's just looking at a small snapshot of the 4th and 5th of July last year. I included the 5th because we were out until after 5 o'clock in the morning putting out fires. We have limited resources. These men that do this, they're all volunteer. We all have regular jobs. We're all expected to be there the next morning to perform those jobs. So when we're out all night, we're not doing anyone service. We're not doing our employers any service. Potentially, depending on your type of job, you may not be doing yourself or your coworkers, or in my particular day job, maybe the general public, any service if I were to make a mistake. The real issue that I have as far as being stretched thin, not only the manpower, but is our apparatus. We've only got 4 pieces of apparatus that can effectively put out fires, meaning grass fires, brush fires, and that caused by fireworks. And I say that because that's the most common start, is a grass fire or brush fire. We have had structures, we have had vehicles, we've had everything start on fire due to fireworks. But that being said, if I have those 4 pieces and our 2 engine companies out somewhere outside of the city of Riverton or even inside, and there's a problem, there's a fire at your house or your neighbor's house, we're previously engaged. And while I don't know what this is going to do to our call volume, it will increase it. Will it increase it by 2 calls? Will it increase it by 30 calls? I don't know. We have to plan for the worst, of course, so it could potentially double our night. So I just would ask in your support to not allow the use of fireworks in the city of Riverton. Thank you.
Thanks, thanks, Chief. Appreciate your comments.
Absolutely.
Any other individuals?
Jeremy Cruz. On behalf of my 18-year-old self, I'd like to thank the chief and his brethren for putting out a fire I started on 4th of July. But I don't want to speak about that. I'd just like to thank him for his work and what those guys do.
Is the probation over?
Talk to my mom. What I'd like to speak to is quality of life. I think we live in Riverton, and I'm a new resident to Riverton, so I can barely attest to this, but I think one of the reasons we live here is because of the quality of life. And my wife and I made an active decision to choose Riverton for a number of reasons, and quality of life was high on that list. We've lived in very, very noisy, busy places, and so noise isn't going to bother us. We've dealt with that. But New Orleans is special because it's New Orleans and you can leave. Same with New York City. You can't. I lived in New York City for many, many years, and getting away from that noise was one of the big reasons we left. So I think that Councilwoman Schatza compared Riverton and Lander's 4th of July celebration, and I would agree that Riverton's is a lot different, but also we all have the opportunity to leave Lander and come back to our nice home, our nice quiet environment. So from my perspective, this would be an easy decision. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other comments? There being no other speakers, the chair would entertain a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes. The chair would entertain a motion to adopt ordinance number 19-003 on first reading.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Kyle?
And on the discussion, instead of not allowing it at city parks or school districts, I would think what the real intent was to have fireworks, in your own yard, personal location. Unless Tim invites me up there, I would set firecrackers off in my own yard. I wouldn't be interested in going somewhere else. And normally we go up to my daughter's house, which is out of city limits, and then we've got the cleanup. But I would think that it's generally thought of as locating in your own property versus, I can't imagine going to the school or to the public park. Public park might be fun, but it would be a horrendous cleanup. It would be on us to clean that up. But I would think that it would be better suited to, during those periods of time, that it would be on your property, your responsibility. That's what Mike was saying. Let's see if we're responsible and responsible in doing it on our property.
Thanks, Kyle. Tim?
Anna? When we first started talking about this, it started because of the letter from Mr. Tyra. And it specifically mentioned 4th of July and January 1st. But I guess one of the issues that I have with just the way this would be worded is, as it stands now, you can't do them at all. There's nothing in our ordinance that would allow us by resolution to be able to say, okay, we can do them this year, or we can't do them this year, or whatever. I would think it would make more sense, and in the spirit of, I guess, what Mr. Bailey was saying, which was, let's see if we're responsible enough, rather than specifically having it in an ordinance so that if we found out later we don't like this idea, saying that, you can do it on the 4th of July and January 1st, that it would leave it open for us to set, to be by resolution, to be able to say whether we would be able to do fireworks on that date and time. Does that seem like that would be possible? I think we had discussed that a little bit early on.
Your Honor, if I may?
Sure.
The reason usually that it is put in this form, as opposed to exactly what you've talked about, which is, okay, we're going to allow it this year and we determine that, is more for the matter of consistency. And that way, the restriction becomes an exception. So it's the exception to the rule, and the rule being to allow it. It's in essence the same as what you're suggesting. The difference is that the handful of conversations, and handful is an overstatement probably, that I've had with regard to that is that if we allow it consistently and say, okay, we're not going to do it this year, then we can publicize it this year for that special reason. We're not going to allow it if we're going to be responsible. And if you say, listen, it's just been a problem, it was a problem on 4th of July, we're not going to do it this year, or we're going to talk about doing away with it completely at any given time, you could, by resolution, immediately stop it. And then you could go immediately turn around and by ordinance change it. So I guess what I'm trying to say, and I'm not trying to talk too much around it, is simply it's been more consistent to say you may unless we say no. Otherwise, we do a lot more advertising every single time. And people start getting into the habit of, well, did I hear it? Did I not hear it? Yes, I did it. And then if we enforce it during those time periods that we didn't say that it was okay, then it becomes a slight more of an enforcement hassle.
And I guess part of my point, I'm sorry, Your Honor, I'll be brief. Part of my point, I guess, would be, let's say with the eclipse celebration. This wouldn't leave it open for us to, by resolution, say we could add times to this. So this is saying, yes, and I guess you're exactly right. This is saying December 31st to January 1st, unless restricted. This doesn't leave open other times. If we find out we really like this, and it's working well, and we're not getting a lot of calls, which I don't know, but if we found out we really liked it, it might be something where we would want to open up additional times in addition to this. And so that would be my point.
I apologize, Your Honor. I heard that a little, I heard it differently. The council could amend it to say at the times or as authorized by resolution.
So maybe it would just be like 4 or 3 that would be saying at other times as authorized by resolution from the city council.
Correct.
My feeling here is We've already had Mr. Cruz confess to misdemeanor.
Out of city limits.
And so I would like the chief's opinion, but my thought goes to every time we're moving the hours around and the dates around, makes it difficult on his people to say, yeah, it was legal last year, but it's not legal this year because of a fire ban. And so do you see any problems with that, Chief?
Your Honor, we're very concrete thinkers, and so the easiest way to do it, the better for us. I will tell you that.
Yeah, that's what I would say. And so would Grandma Cruz.
Your Honor, Chief, I want to say thanks for all you guys do, honestly, because working your full-time jobs and then go and do that, like that's more than I want to do, that's for sure. What in regards to your letter, I was thinking, outside the box, if we are allowing them in city limits, perhaps it would take your calls outside of city limits down. And I don't know, we can't predict that, but that's just my thought process. And inside city limits, there's going to be a lot less brush to start fires. But I'm not a fireman, and I don't know any knowledge of that. But those are just my thoughts that I'm thinking of when you had mentioned that. And then, do you know, Chief, the landers' perimeters, are they about the same as us? Because I mean, okay. If you want to speak on that, I'm just curious.
So the City of Lander's fire department covers only the City of Lander. They are ran by the city, not a special district like we are. They do offer mutual aid to Fremont County, which we do as well, and we receive it from them. So I spoke with some of their members, their past chief, and they run calls. He said, depending on the year, they might run 2 calls. They might run 30 calls. That's where I got that number from. So they do run them as well. Yeah, the problem in town, in a densely populated area, your increase for structures or, like I said, vehicles or something like that. Yeah, I mean, burning down 100 acres of brush is a real pain, and it sucks, but it's just brush in the end. Burning down a house or a shed or whatever, that's it's a lot more important. The dollar value is a lot greater, obviously. So your insurance rates and hours spent, I mean, there's just a number of things that go into that.
And in the recent past, how many structure fires has Lander had in regards to their fireworks on the 4th of July?
I do not know. I couldn't answer that.
Chief, Lander's run a performance from Dr. Bill's, and he's no longer with us, but his performance was quite spectacular.
Oh, absolutely. I've seen it, yeah.
Way outside the city limits, too.
It is.
Correct.
Yep.
Did you ever have a fire on his?
I don't know. That was before I was involved in the fire service, so I, again, couldn't speak to that. I can tell you the ones that we do condone, that we give our blessings to, the Little League's fireworks in June, I believe, and the Rendezvous fireworks. Mm-hmm. We provide standby services. We're there, but we still fight fires. So it can happen. We've had some large fires up on Valley View and that hillside there.
Always entertaining.
We've also had some pretty decent ones right down at the Bale station where they light them off as well. Again, more to my point, that's just grass, just brush. Yes, we're committing resources to prevent the spread, but it's a little bit different.
Thanks, Chief. Kyle?
Wouldn't it be, if you were doing it in a residential area, you would have water available, hoses available? It sounds to me like if Lander were having a problem, he would have said, but don't let it in this area or that area because it causes us a lot of problems. But if we have hoses available and water available, utilities,
so
residential areas,
you're asking
like that would be not as big a problem as a brush area.
So you're asking the general public to be able to suppress the fire with a small amount of water. I mean, a garden hose does not really provide sufficient flow. I mean, a small little grass fire, sure, it'll put it out. I mean, you can do it with a gallon of water probably. But if it grows, if it gets into the, up underneath the siding of your house because you have some leaves piled up or something like that, that's where the problems lie. It's not the small brush fires. I mean, yes, those keep us busy all night long. But that's what I'm speaking to. But the potential for greater loss of property and potentially lives is the issue that I have. I mean, have I seen a structure fire burn and have a loss of life personally because of a firework? No. But is the potential there? Yes.
I believe in your report at your annual dinner, there were 78 of your 240-some responses that were grass fires.
That sounds correct, yes.
Your Honor.
Yes.
You could have a seat, Chief.
Sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless you want to come back up.
You got any further
You
questions?
can just hang out there if you
Absolutely.
want. Whatever you want to do. My next comment is in regards to our quiet town. I love Riverton because it is quiet. It's peaceful, and I'm comfortable, walking down the street by myself and that type of thing, and not a lot of stuff's going on. But I can tell you in the last year or so, when we've started doing things in the community, such as the Christmas tree lighting and the rendezvous games and Day in the Park, the balloon rally, those things like that, it really does bring the community together. And my main focus is building our community up, allowing our businesses to thrive, and allowing our community to thrive. And I think having these types of events, these types of things, these special events, these special things in our community won't do any harm at all. And people can still enjoy their quiet times, because Riverton, that's what we are. We are a quiet little community, but we're also the rendezvous community, where we should be rendezvousing together and creating events and creating things to bring us together and to help our community thrive. So I completely understand that, and I'm not trying to take anything away from our quiet community. I think we can be both.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
One more thing, Your Honor. I was just, because we started talking about Lander, I wanted to look at their ordinance to see if there's anything maybe we're missing here. And, and this goes along with Councilman Larson's comment. This is in their ordinance, which is Lander Municipal Code 783. All persons discharging fireworks in or into the city of Lander shall be responsible for the cleanup and removal of any and all trash or debris caused or left by said fireworks. I think that would not be bad to add to ours, just to make clear that if you're doing this, you got to clean up after yourself.
That'd be a good amendment.
So, Your Honor, so what I would do is I would move that we would amend the way that this has been presented from just 3, 1, and 2. I would move for the amendment that we have in the copy that we have here. 3, discharge of fireworks during the allowed times is prohibited. And then I would also move for an amendment 4 that would be all persons discharging fireworks in or into the city of Riverton shall be responsible for the cleanup and removal of any and all trash or debris caused or left by said fireworks.
We have a motion put forward. Do we have a second?
Second.
Do we need that read, Tony?
No, Your Honor, I believe we have it.
So all in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Amendment passes. So we're back to the vote on the original ordinance 19-003 on first reading with the addition of amendment item number 4. Do we want to vote there or do we want it read? You want to go to the vote?
A vote, yep.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes. We're on 14, public hearing, consideration of resolution number 1386, mid-year budget amendments. Finance Director's report, please.
Thank you, Mayor, Councilmen, and Councilwomen. Good news is I'm not going to ask you to pass any further ordinances tonight.
Fantastic.
I'm just going to discuss the budget amendment resolution. I think in the interest of time, I will not read my 3-page staff report to you. You've all had an opportunity to review that. And I also know that Public Works Director Butterfield is very excited to talk with you about stormwater detention facility agreements. So I'll try to make this as brief as possible. So statutorily, we are required to present a budget amendment document to you for any changes in our budget that are not performed through line item transfers. Some additional funding is proposed in this amendment in order to fund some unbudgeted expenses and some upcoming projects. There are 5 cost centers in the general fund that are up for discussion for amendment this evening. And I will go through each of these briefly. If you have any further questions, please feel free to ask. The first budget that we would be recommending a change to is actually the mayor and council budget. And we're actually recommending a $4,000 reduction in your budget this year. We are requesting an increase in legal services in the amount of $6,000. Our legal expenses that we had budgeted are fast outpacing the allowance that we have been permitted. So we will need to request an increase in that particular line item. Additionally, we are requesting a transfer of $10,000 from beautification, which we will be moving to the Parks Department budget for the City Park water feature, which is the splash pad. This was actually approved at a September 4th City Council meeting. We are just making the formal steps to get that completed now. The next cost center under consideration is administrative services. We are requesting an increase to our insurance line item in the amount of $6,000. While we budgeted enough funding to appropriately cover our insurance costs, there was a settlement that was paid out last November. And then further, we are looking at another insurance deductible that was unanticipated that will push this balance a little higher. The next cost center under consideration is building maintenance. We had to request a $22,500 increase to that cost center. The reason is we had some staffing changes, and the previous staff in this department did not exercise insurance coverage, and the new person that we hired on did. That's something that's very difficult to budget as we experience staffing changes throughout the year. And based on the anticipated insurance changes, it's going to require an additional $9,500 in that line item to cover that. Additionally, we received an inspection by the DEQ of our underground tanks that are located here at City Hall. And based on that inspection, the DEQ is requiring that we install a spill bucket and pressure sensor per their regulations, and that's actually at a price tag of $13,000. So that takes care of the increase requested in the building maintenance budget. For parks, we are requesting an amendment of $64,500 for completion of the splash pad project. And then under the IT budget, we are requesting an amendment for website maintenance. This increase will allow for the upgrades and updates as approved by the council during the November 6th City Council meeting. So this is information that has already been discussed with you. So how are we going to pay for all of this? So right now, the governing body must approve transfers from one cost center to another since the total bottom line of that cost center was either decreased or increased. For the first 3 named cost centers, we propose offsetting additional expenses with the funds that we budgeted for transfer to reserves. Some of you were here during the approval of the budget last spring, and we budgeted that we were actually going to transfer $59,000 to reserves this year. Well, based on these changes, it's going to reflect in that balance. Regarding the change to the parks budget, along with the use of the mayor and council beautification budget, the splash pad group actually did raise additional monies to help fully fund this project, so no additional city funds will be necessary to cover that. And then finally, the IT budget will be fully funded and reimbursed by IDEA Inc. So that's important to know that there's no additional city monies that will be necessary to pay for that. Further, we are experiencing a change in our air service agreements, and we are going to need to request an additional $65,986 of city funds to help fund air service. Public Works Director Butterfield has also spoken with the county and the city of Lander, requesting other community contributions to help fund this, and they are awaiting decisions on that as well. So to cover the funding for that, the general fund actually received a combined $74,000 in additional unanticipated revenue over our projections with the supplemental funding and the WYO Lotto funding that we're receiving from the lottery. So it is our staff recommendation to utilize these funds to offset the additional funding needed to cover the air service budget. So the total difference that we would be looking at, we better talk about capital. That's a good fun one. So capital, we are requesting an increase in our capital budget specific for the water detention facility project. Again, Mr. Butterfield will be speaking on that a little bit further. But right now, staff is requesting an increase to the budget of $1.5 million for a total of $2.4 million to reflect finalized engineers' estimates on this project. The cost increase is being offset by revenues from the Department of Transportation, from CITA, and then the council had already approved limits from the State Revolving Loan Fund, the Mineral Royalty Grant, and the 1%. And then the approved budget of city money that was appropriated for this project was $275,000. So we are not requesting any additional city monies. However, we do need to request the increase for both the revenues and the expenditures with the additional funding to bring our budget to balance. So that being said, the total increase that we are requesting for the general fund is $1,669,237. And of that increase, $100,486 will be additional city funding. The next account that we are requesting an increase in is our Economic Development Fund. We are proposing an adjustment of that fund for $8,000, and that is to support the City Council-approved security camera system on the Riverwalk project. And this project is also fully reimbursable by IDEA Inc. as well, so there will be no new monies requested for that increase. And the last increase that we are requesting is for the Rendezvous Games. This is a brand-new budget that we are creating, and we have created a mid-year. This is under the advisement of the State Department of Audit that we create a separate fund for the Rendezvous Games. And it is a self-sustained fund, meaning we are not using city monies or general fund monies to support this project. All the funds collected to host this event will support all expenditures without the support of the general fund, and this staff did establish a budget of $1,600 for this fiscal year. And we arrived at that figure based on the number of entries that we received for the event that took place on February 2nd. So the proposed overall changes will be $2,524,846, and that will increase our budget, our total budget, to what's now a $28,773,590 budget. Approval of this resolution does support the subcategory of Council Goal Number 6 to maintain a sustainable budget and a clean annual audit. And at this time, I would stand for any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Any questions?
The detention facility, I know we're going to get to that, but in terms of what we're looking at here, is that the 75% responsibility and everything, did we budget for that amount? Is that within the budgeted amount, or is that over, or where are we at with that?
Your Honor, I would defer to Councilman Butterfield for that.
Thank you.
Your Honor, the budget amendment takes into account the entire project cost, and it also takes into account the revenues that are coming in from CITA and WYDOT to help offset the total project cost.
But in terms of the total project cost, from what we talked about at the point we budgeted, we're at about the amount that we were thinking for it, or? I don't have the budget book in front of me.
No, Your Honor, Councilman, thank you for the clarification on the question. This does represent an increase to the total project cost. We made an estimate of the total project cost last year during the budget time, but we didn't have design or an engineer's estimate. So this is now making an appropriate increase based on the numbers received from the design.
Does that answer your question?
I did, yeah, thank
Kyle?
Is that retention pond, retention in the new purchased land, is that complete now?
Your Honor, Councilman, the design detention pond will account for our regional stormwater influx into that detention pond, and then it will account for some of CIDA's development. But the agreement is actually pretty clever in the sense that any future demands of the detention pond will be on the property owner or CIDA to expand it to meet their needs as the land develops. I hope that answered your question. If not, I can clarify.
Is it done?
Oh, no, Your Honor, it has not occurred yet.
What retention is there now, presently? With the head gate there's a head gate system and piping, etc. And there is pond and retention pond there on the land on Webwood Road on the property which we sold to that. What is that then?
Your Honor, Councilman, thank you for the clarification. That is basically the drainage channel for the stormwater that's generated from WYDOT in the city of Riverton. It's a pretty wide channel, so it looks like it could be a detention pond, but really what it will serve is to channel the water that is diverted off of Webwood onto what was Honor Farm property, so the CIDA property. And it currently just runs along the south border of that property or the north side of Webwood Road. When the detention pond project commences, that channel will continue along the eastern border to the north and then go into significantly large detention facilities. They're about 165 feet wide, and there will be two ponds, one of which is about 1,000 feet long, and the other is, give or take, 500 to 600 feet long. So they'll be significantly larger than the channel you've seen constructed as part of the North Federal project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Would the city clerk please read the resolution number 1386 by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Resolution number 1386, a resolution providing for the 2018-2019 budget for the city of Riverton for the fiscal year beginning the first day of July 2018 and ending the 30th day of June 2019 inclusive.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Motion passes. I would now declare the public hearing open. The hearing will be conducted in accordance with state statute and other applicable laws. I would ask that those individuals wishing to address the council to approach the podium and to identify yourself for the record. Seeing none?
Seeing none, Your Honor, I would move to close public discussion on 1386.
The chair would entertain that motion to close the public hearing. Any?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. The chair would now entertain a motion to approve resolution number 1386, mid-year budget amendments.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Item 15, WYDOT agreement, stormwater detention facility, Public Works Director report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. The agreement before you specifically deals with the stormwater detention project that we were just discussing. This agreement sets the terms by which WYDOT will reimburse the city of Riverton its share of the cost for the detention facility. A few items to highlight from the staff report and in the agreement. WYDOT does agree to reimburse the city of Riverton 15% of actual construction and engineering costs for the project. We do have a time frame on when they will submit payment to us, and it's within 45 days. The city will assume the role of the project owner and perform the letting of the project. So basically meaning we'll manage the project, we'll do the quality control, we'll ensure that there's proper daily testing and oversight of the construction. And that really spells it out. It's a simple agreement where WYDOT agrees to take its appropriate share of that project. Maybe to answer the question of why it's an 85-15 cost share, that goes back to our agreement that's in place currently for the North Federal project. When there was a hydrology report done for the stormwater that goes through the North Federal system, 85% of the water was found to be generated off of the highway and in the city of Riverton rights-of-way. 15% was actually highway-generated stormwater. So that's where the 85-15 comes from. It applies to the detention facility because all the improvements and all the water that will be channeled through the new infrastructure on North Federal will go into this detention pond facility. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Appreciate that. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the contract between the City of Riverton and Wyoming Department of Transportation.
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Item number 16, Denver Air Connection Contract. Public Works Director's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Before you is an amendment to the existing contract that we have in place with Denver Air Connection. That contract runs from July 1st through June 30th of 2018-2019. This amendment specifically addresses some of the problems that we've discussed already. That is the cost of fuel, and then also revenue projections and performance. It also extends the contract period. As I mentioned, the original contract will expire June 30th, 2019. This new one extends that through January 11th, 2020. The reason for that is to provide an appropriate bridge of air service until the state of Wyoming makes a determination on what it will do with its capacity purchase proposal, that new program. So this amendment really addresses two things. First, it ensures that we appropriately adjust costs for the current, I would say, fiscal year, so up through June 30th, 2019. And then it also addresses an extension of service moving beyond July 1st, 2019 and up through January 11th, 2020. Why January 11th and not January 1st? We wanted people to go visit their families for Christmas and holidays and be able to come home. So that will allow that. The specifics of the agreement are outlined in your staff report. I won't go into too much detail because I know you've had a chance to review it. One thing to note, however, is the change in the block hour rate in the amendment. And you'll notice that there are two separate block hour rates for this contract amendment. Why? It's because of a schedule change. So for the first portion of this amended contract, we will be operating under a tagged schedule, very similar to what we did in year 1 and 2 with Denver Air Connection. For the second portion of the amendment, we'll be operating an amended tagged schedule that will increase flights on our higher load days or our days that we have more frequency and reduce flights on days that we don't see a lot of travel. So I think it's a smart schedule to optimize what we're doing and then reduce costs on days when we don't want to incur those. So that's why you see the two different block hour rates. Those block hours is really what calculates our cost for air service each week, and then it's offset by the revenues generated by baggage fees and ticket sales. With that, we recommend that this be approved by council. Thanks to the work of Mrs. Harris, the budget amendment does cover the additional cost for Riverton's portion through the end of this current fiscal year. We are working with our community stakeholders to generate and receive their share of the increase as well. And it should be noted that Sheridan is an equal partner in this agreement, and they have taken this agreement or the contract amendment to the County Commission on February 5th, and it was approved. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
The chair would entertain a motion to approve the amendment.
One
Yes.
question.
Okay.
On there, we see that the cost per hour is $24.13, the back half, and 27 on the front half. Is that what you were talking about? And that's because we're loading on days where we could use more, and on times where we have in the past not had airplanes, where we've got airplane service, but we're flying empty seats.
Your Honor, that is correct. The reason for the block hour change and the rate change in the block hour is for the schedule. Another way to look at it, along with what you said, is the first half of that contract amendment or that period will have fewer flights and less flights to spread the overhead of operating the Denver Air Connection project. And so that's why you see a 2,700 and change block hour. But on the second half, it drops to 2,400 because there are more flights across which to spread the cost for operating the entire project. So there's economy of scale is maybe not the right word, but there's more flights to spread that overhead cost across.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? The chair would entertain a motion to approve the amendment. One, to the revenue and operation agreement between Key Lime Air, Sheridan County, and the city of Riverton.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion passes. Reports and comments. Council committee reports and council members roundtable. Let's start with you, Kyle.
I have nothing, Your Honor.
Rebecca.
All right, so this evening I attended the pause committee meeting. We talked about their event that's happening on March 2nd. Marty Pause. If you haven't got your tickets yet to that, any Pause board member is selling them, and you can also go down to the shelter and purchase those tickets as well. It should be a pretty good event. Somebody approached me saying, "Well, I'm tired of going to all those events with their auctioning off items, and we got to sit there through a live auction, silent auction." So this event doesn't have any of that. This is just an event to have a good time, eat some amazing food, and listen to some good music, and just hang out with your friends. So it's just a really, really great event, trying to raise money for the shelter. And then, of course, they went over their budget and their intake and outtake and all that kind of stuff. So they're doing a real good job down there. If you see those gals or guys around, make sure you tell them thanks, because that's a pretty tough job they got down there with all those pups, see those dogs and cats come in and out. So, and then met with the Parks Committee last night. We are finalizing our master plan for our parks. Kyle should be happy to hear that. He's throwing the hammer down on us, making us focus and get to work. So we had a really, really productive meeting last night. And we plan tentatively, we'll speak with Kyle more on this, to have our public meeting to get the public's input on our community parks on March 11th, which is a Monday. We figured that would be a good day for people to get together Monday evening here in this council chamber. So, of course, that'll be discussed a little bit further with Mr. Butterfield. But other than that, once we got down to finish with our business, we did do a little mini roundtable with the committee members. And I could tell you what, that committee, if you haven't met those Parks Committee members, are quite the stellar group of individuals. So motivated and willing to make things happen in Riverton. It's pretty neat. I always look forward to going to that meeting because it's a lot of fun. And then the chamber meeting, I went to my first chamber board meeting about last week or the week before. I can't remember which meeting that was, but we met. And my first meeting, so I was kind of just getting the feel of things. So I think that they're onto something really good there with the chamber. And it looks like there's a lot of new members coming in, a lot of younger members, you know, with a lot of energy and excitement. So that's great. And they also are passing around a nomination form. So if you haven't seen that, they're nominating, you know, a business and nominating an individual, and then a lifetime service recognition as well. I have that in email form. If you'd like it, I could get it to you, and then it needs to be sent back to the director, Jim Davis. I think that's a great thing to get those people noticed, people that are doing good in the community, because it gets them motivated again. Sometimes it can get tiring, you know, and you feel like it's a thankless job. But that if you can nominate somebody, it takes not much time at all to do that. So let me know if you want that sent to you via email, or we can even get it printed off for you, and that way you could recognize somebody that you've noticed is doing a lot for the community. But other than that, I think that's all I got, Your Honor.
Thanks for your hard work. Tim?
I had the opportunity to attend a Solutions Committee meeting on February 14th at 5:30 p.m. when people should be having dates with their wives for Valentine's Day. Note for the future with that. Anyway, it was a good meeting, productive meeting, discussed a lot of different ordinances. Had already brought up a little bit of the liquor possession discussion when we were talking about how basically if you got a couple of guys sitting there in the park with a bottle of alcohol, how the Riverton Police Department has felt pretty hamstrung with that. If none of them have been, there's not an actual open container there. None of them are intoxicated such that they don't feel like they can care for themselves. But you've got people that are in the park that don't want them there passing around a bottle of booze. And so we discussed a little bit about fixing that, making it so that we have different tools available to handle that. And I think the chief has an idea for an ordinance there that I guess the point is to be coming later to talk about that. Also discussed a little bit with Tristine Grover is actually the director of the homeless shelter. They are in pretty dire straits, do not have a lot of funding available. Their grant funding that they have right now is starting to run out, and trying to figure out solutions for that. And one of the things that they're trying to figure out is another organization that they could possibly merge with to help fix that. But I had indicated, you know, the reality is the homeless shelter doesn't really have this incredible marketing team. They're basically run by Tristine and one other person for the most part. And people just don't realize that they're there, where they are, and what their needs are. And right now, when I was speaking to her, some of their needs are financial. Other needs that she has are people to be willing to serve on their board. They have a lot of, I think they've got openings on their board. They have people that have been there for years that just really, I guess, kind of feel like they're done. They've spent their time there. So if there are people in the community that are looking for something that they can help, and I know there's people out there, we are always willing to come to these events where we're auctioning something off and taking all of that time. If there are people out there that are civic-minded and want to find an organization to help, I would definitely encourage getting a hold of the Good Samaritan Center and trying to talk about the possibility of being on their board, seeing what you can do to help out just in terms of volunteering, financially, any of that. But right now, she's kind of at a bit of her wit's end with trying to figure out what she's going to do. So there is that need there, and I would encourage people to look into that. Other than that, the Solutions Committee, I think, is a very, very good organization. People have been doing very well at coming up with different ideas. We still need them, though. So if there's people that want to give feedback, talking about things with the Solutions Committee as possibilities, please feel free to contact us. I think the mayor already named most of the people on the committee. You can also get a hold of the chief. I'm very excited with some of the things the chief has been talking about in terms of enforcement. I think one of the biggest discussions we had was the idea that for whatever reason, citizens in Riverton, for years, I think, have kind of almost seen City Park as a lost cause. And I think recently we've only been starting to say, no, it's not. We've got the skate park there. We've got the splash pad going in there. And one of the things we discussed is that we actually are going to be working to make sure that the city, from the chief's standpoint, we are going to do what we can to make it so that people can use City Park. But we need people to be there and using it. And so I would definitely encourage people to do that. And if you've been there before and haven't had good experiences, realize we are doing what we can to enforce the laws there. We have a police presence that has been there more frequently, and I think will continue to be there. And there have been discussions the chief has had with people that have frequented the City Park that have been there intoxicated, saying, look, you can't be doing this anymore. And I think the message is getting out. So I would definitely encourage people to come to City Park. If you've had bad experiences there in the past, give it a try again. And honestly, if you do have bad experiences there, let us know. The police are ready and willing and able to enforce the law there, and they'll be there. So that was our discussion for solutions. That's it for me.
Thank you. Carla?
Councilman Schatz and Councilman Hancock have pretty well covered everything that I'm involved with.
Okay.
I want to thank our police chief. I think he's doing a really good job with his officers, being proactive with some of these problems that we're having. And I just want to say thank you because it helps. It's helping a lot. I think that's all I have to say.
Thank you. City Administrator's report.
Thank you, Your Honor. A couple quick items. Airport Board is this Friday at 8 a.m. at City Hall. Of course, the mayor, Councilman Hancock, and myself will be attending WHAM for the next 3 days. There is a legislative session going on. If anybody has any questions during that time period, let us know, or we need to convey any information or there's a topic of concern, please let us know. We'll do our best. I would point out Men Who Cook will be this Saturday, and the city is well represented. Eric Carr will be making his tacos. Chief Murphy.
Pigs in a blanket.
Okay.
The most genuine, if not the most tasteful.
And then again, Councilmember Hancock and myself will be a team doing. We're doing soup this year, and the test runs have gone amazing. So we invite anybody to come out, support childhood literacy through the Dolly Parton Foundation. I was able to do this last year, and it was a lot of fun. This community is amazing at putting on events, and they're well attended, and that's pretty special. RECDA will be on the 27th at 7 a.m. at the Sundowner, if anybody wants to attend. You heard earlier, as part of the budget amendment, a brief discussion about cameras at the Riverwalk. There are 3 cameras at the Riverwalk that we had discussed previously. Those are up and they are running. They are in dispatch. And I know the mayor and I have both had the opportunity to look at those and see what they can do. I will say that I am impressed with the clarity, considering how far away they are. You wouldn't, when you zoom out, you're surprised at, oh, it's that far away, because it's very clear. So that's going to be useful as we look forward to replacing certain cameras throughout the community. It's nice to know that we'll be able to upgrade that to make them more useful. The website committee that was formed to move forward our website and the design has been working diligently on that process. I was able to see some of the general design layouts. We really look forward to presenting the functionality of that new site. You heard that Idea Inc. helped fund that, and that was appreciated. That upgrade is going to do good things for us in getting information out, providing information, and allowing us to receive feedback. I expect council is going to be pleased with it. So we will look forward to providing that, and we will also be putting together a some public information and probably making some stops. Once that is implemented, it's still going to be a little bit, but go to the RECDAs and the Rotaries and the Kiwanis groups of the community and make sure that the community knows that it can be used in the functionality of it. So we'll look forward to that. And the last thing, Councilwoman Schatz and I both attended a local foods discussion this last Friday evening. With regard, and part of that discussion was the local foods group talking about whether or not they wanted to move to City Park. And the conversation that we had was one that we've been having about concerns about its use, the negative use that has happened. And the message that we have conveyed is the same message that you've heard this evening, that the chief has been so diligent about making sure sticks. We're going to use that for good things. Our police department's working hard to make sure that happens, but just has been pointed out here tonight that we do need the community's help. We can't leave a vacuum there for something to occupy. We want to make sure they're good things. The skate park is a great thing. The splash pad is going to be amazing, and we want to make sure it's used. So we are encouraging that use, and we are encouraging those conversations. So we would just invite people to have those conversations with us. Your Honor, I don't have anything else. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, though.
Any questions? Today I went to Lander to a county commissioners meeting with public public directors, director of works, whatever you're. And
Public Works Director.
Thank you very much. Public Works Director, Kyle, what are you?
I don't know.
And I was pleased to have his presentation to the county commissioners. That's going to be a hard sale to the county commissioners, and he did a good job. Excellent job. Whatever your title is, you did well. The other thing I did is on the way out of Lander, I stopped at the Game and Fish office. As I was driving through Riverton yesterday, we had an incident up in one of the intersections at College View in Maine. And I called Tony, and Tony was good enough to go check that site. And did you find out who removed that for us?
Your Honor, I did not specifically find out who it was, only that they had removed 5.
Super. And that would have even been better for my discussion with the Game and Fish. And they're willing to come and talk to us as a council and see if there's some way that we can get a control on the deer population in our community and possibly quit having all those incidents, especially on Main Street. I appreciate the effort by all of you. I've been to most of the council meetings or the committee meetings, and I appreciate the efforts that you're putting forward. I don't know that we don't need an executive session.
No, Your Honor.
Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn from regular council meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We stand adjourned. Motion passed. This meeting of the Riverton City Council stands adjourned at 9:28.